Disaster Walker, Texas Ranger. It's time to review the latest episode of My Hero Academia. I want to know, first of all, what did you think about this week's episode? Let me know in the comment section down below and you'll get read out in next week's show. And whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good. Now on to the review. As is always the case when we start out with one of these reviews, let us start out with the positives. And I have to say that this is yet another thrilling, action-packed episode. It really is just keeping the pace up and keeping the quality up almost consistently since this new season started, with only a few niggling points here and there, but we'll discuss those when we get into the negatives. Not many, but still I feel that they need to be discussed. As far as the positives itself is concerned, it was really great to see certain members of our cast actually doing stuff. Midoriya actually doing stuff, using his powers and being heroic. Admittedly for the whole of 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds were great to see. I really do like to see both him and Tomura fighting, and it just brings this sense of mirroring even more to the fold, and it makes it feel a lot more personal than we get in certain other superhero fiction that we've certainly seen recently these days. And it was great to see Mount Lady actually doing something as well, rather than just being a larger comic relief fan service character. Even though it appears that she doesn't seem to know how to deal with fighting with someone who's just as big or bigger than her. I have had to deal with that kind of thing myself. I've had to deal with bigger people than that. Alright, well, relatively speaking, that is. But still, all it needs is a bit of a rugby tackle, get them round the waist, then either lift upwards or swing around them to knock their balance off, and then just watch as they go tumbling down. Maybe a good headbutt to the groin when no one's looking, and that's surely to get his eyes watering. On another note, I feel that the metamorphosis of Tomura continues to be chilling and horrifying the more that we see it. The twisted facial expressions that we get from him throughout this episode, particularly one in particular, which I'm sure you'll know which I'm referring to, is just stunning. It really is just amazing to see just this descent in just pure evil villainy, this twisted insanity that he's falling into, and this link between him and All For One is rather fascinating. I'll be interested to see exactly where they go with it, though I will admit this is another thing that's been spoiled for me, so I know where it's all going, but I'm going to pretend that I don't. At least for the meantime, and I just realised I had written something that could be construed as a spoiler, so I'm moving on. I did like the sequence that we saw towards the start of this episode, though, where we saw everyone's families. Just this moment where they're just doing mundane, everyday things. It further emphasises that we are now beyond the moment of change. We have really crossed the Rubicon here, and that these moments for these people are just the calm before the storm, where this final sense of normality and peace that they know it will be shattered in what to them will be a matter of minutes. All they need to do is look on the local TV screen, or rather the nearest TV screen, or listen to the radio, and they'll know things are going down. And if they know anything about what their kids are up to, they know that their kids are going to be in the middle of it, and it's no doubt going to scare the hell out of them, especially bearing in mind everything that's going to happen. I will admit, I also had a thought of this towards the start of the episode, and this isn't my notes, so forgive me if this gets into a little bit of a rambling point. Just the moment where you got the helicopters surveying all the destruction that's happened. I'm just getting flashbacks of the ocean dubomite of Dragon Ball Z. Just that moment of, they've destroyed the cargo helicopter, that kind of stuff. I'm just expecting Tomura to turn around and say, I've destroyed all these things. It's just the same, it's a Sunday and no one was at work. Harumph. Maybe that's just me, maybe it's me showing my age, but still, I kind of had a slight wry smile at that moment, even though I will admit I'm probably supposed to be terrified, but that's more on me than it is necessarily the show itself. Now we're going to pivot into the negatives, what few that they are, and I feel that, as far as negatives are concerned, that we moved away from the stuff with Midoriya and Tomura just too soon for my liking. I have a feeling we're probably going to get more of that next week, and possibly the week after that, and invariably we are going to have some big final confrontation with them further down the line, but here and now, as much as I do appreciate the drama of the stuff happening with Midnight and Yayarozu and the rest of them, I do feel that we have been spoiling for the episode which is Midoriya and Tomura going at it, or just an episode with Midoriya as being the focus. I know that it might seem insane to say I want an episode where Midoriya is the focus in what is essentially his own TV show, but all the same, I do feel that we're at a moment where we need to see more of him, because as much as I do love ensemble programming and ensemble stories, this is his story, and right now he feels more like a casual observer to it, or at least a a semi-regular participant in it, more so than its central protagonist. I feel also that whilst I did like the stuff with Mount Lady and Giganton and a man fighting, I do feel that they possibly reused a lot of animation, particularly when they're having their back and forth. I will admit that I don't have a keen eye for this kind of stuff as far as anime itself is concerned. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But for me, just like they were using the exact same shots but with slightly different lip sync, I do understand, I am sympathetic to the fact that they can't just do a different shot each and every single time. Don't have the money, don't have the budget, and also it just feels rather excessive. But I feel that just given how frequently we see those shots in such a short period of time, it doesn't quite land for me. I'm not going to say it looks cheap, because bearing in mind the era of cartoons and animation that I grew up with, oh boy, that sure was cheap. I mean, it's not quite Hanna-Barbera, we're just going to animate them from the neck up levels, but given the quality of everything else, it just feels like a down point to me, where I feel that by and large the animation of this season has just been so fantastically on point that it feels like a slight downer, but I'm not going to dwell on it too much. And my final negative is I feel that the cliffhanger stuff with Midnight itself, or herself rather, wasn't satisfying. I know that it technically isn't a cliffhanger because she didn't end the episode, but I think you get the idea. When last we see of her, it doesn't have the level of impact I feel it should do. She's the first major hero to be put into a position like this. You can argue Hawks was, but he was brought down by the weight of battle. She was pretty much just knocked out and then knocked in the middle of nowhere, and now she's getting surrounded. This is the first real moment where the villains really do have the jump on a hero, and it feels like we're missing a level of jeopardy there. I feel that there needs to be this greater sense of, oh crap, she's surrounded, to help bring that level of uncertainty to the next level. Though I will grant you that it is kind of hard to do that because she already has her back against the wall as is. Though only a few seconds before that, she had her front against the wall as well, thanks to Mr. Compress. Ha ha! I know that was a terribly laboured joke, but hey, give it to me. I need to make my bad jokes where I can do. I don't often get a chance to these days. Still, I did like the stuff with Midnight as a whole. I think that it is nice to see more of her as a human being, because much like Mount Lady, it feels like she's too much of a comic relief fan service character, more than being a character within her own right. I do feel that more should have been done with her up until this point to make this moment of uncertainty hit harder for me, but that's just the way that it is, I feel. I think that maybe it's had undercooked, but we'll see where it goes with next week's episode. As a whole entity, it was solid. What did have some great moments of action within the action sequence we said. The uncertainty we have around the fate of certain characters and certain heroes, I think, is good. I feel that it needed to be built up a little more to have a little more weight behind it. But as a whole entity, it's still solid. Still very, very solid. I've not seen the preview to next week's episode. I don't know what we're getting into exactly, but I have a strong feeling that we are going to get into something in particular, and I think I know what that is going to be. And those who know what I'm referring to, well, they know what I'm referring to, but we'll see. I think it's coming. I know it's coming. It's just a matter of when. The great sense of anticipation, this great sense of uncertainty, quashed by spoiler arseholes on the internet. But whatever, we'll move on. Now it's time for Comment Corner. Our first comment comes from X1, who says, the shot where Tomura was using Ragdoll's quirk was freaky, and the part where Toga gave her Death Star was brilliant. Yeah, I do agree, those two were just great, brilliant moments, just these horrifying senses, these just showing this level of bestial inhumanity that the pair of them have, this just dark, unspeakable void that their hearts and minds have become in that moment, just leaving this horrifying, instinctive sense to destroy and to kill whoever might be in their way. Men and women whose only sin in that moment was being in the wrong place at the wrong time, being ripped to shreds or turned to dust by people who won't even commit their memory to anything. Their final moments, everything they live for, will just be a number on some spreadsheet somewhere. It's disgustingly terrifying, but brilliantly drawn at the same time, and I like the fact that we saw more of it this week. I like the moments of grotesque visuals that we sometimes get in certain animes that I've been watching. I don't think I could watch an entire show where that is the case, but just these flashes of it adds a greater sense of artistic flair and balance to it. I think that certainly in moments like this, I think that programs like this need. Thank you for your comment, and now we move on. Our second comment comes from Humanity's Hero, who says, and I'll just say here and now, I will be paraphrasing some of this, and I don't mean this to be rude. I struggle with reading as is, and it is a big comment. I will have it on screen so that you can all read it as is, so just forgive me if I go off track with this. I got problems with reading stuff. So, their comment reads, so I'm only going to say stuff that relates to the anime and not spoil anyone. So I think that not a lot of people realise the significance of this yet. But Tomura said, one for all before he knocked out communication. All Might with civilian resources were capable of tracking down the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th All for One users, as Series 5 Episode 25 explained. With his resources, All for One is capable of pinpointing Deku as the 9th user, as hinted in Season 3 Episode 11, after Tomura informed him in Season 1 Episode 13. Now with Tomura looking for One for All, and that being recorded as basically the Hero Society government, how long do you think it would take them to figure out that it is that is what Tomura is searching for? And if it is the current government that's hiding stuff from All for One's reign, it probably exists somewhere in their records. Just food for thought for people who will likely come across this thought process in the coming weeks anyway. As always, as they always do. Though I thought I'd give you a heads up, as I've been waiting for this next batch of episodes for a long time, and I'm happy to see it finally here. Thank you for the comment, and again, apologies for getting the reading of that slightly skew with the dyslexic goblin was poking me in the back of the brain whilst I was reading that, so I made as good a job as I possibly could to. Though with that said, still, thank you for the comment, and with that fascinating speculation. I will admit that whole sequence with Tomura saying one for all, it was something that I did want to cover in greater detail in my review, but I will admit I wasn't in a good headspace when I wrote that review, so regrettably it's something that slipped through the cracks. But as I said in my reply to you, and as I'm going to say now, I feel that that particular moment is setting up for what I feel will be the true snapping moment within this story. I know that some people have quite eloquently discussed how the death of Twice was the moment where we crossed the Rubicon and the show transitioned to this whole new thing, but I think that this is truly the moment where things are really going to change, and change significantly, because I feel that there's going to be a lot of questions, as Humanity's final hero mentioned. There's going to be a lot of questions being asked about all of this, about the One for All and Midori and All Might and the authorities that are involved upon all of this. Not just with Midori's classmates, who are now probably going to start putting 2 and 2 together as far as the relationship between Midori and All Might, and the power that the two of them have shared. Some people, it wouldn't surprise me if in the not too distant future we have to just let it all out. And the question will be just how far this letting of it out will go. We know how the media of this world works, and we know the kind of questions they could end up asking. Is this going to be a thing that's going to become front page news? Are we going to start seeing tabloid newspapers headlines speculating whether Midori is All Might's secret love child? Granted, I probably don't think we're going to see that in the programme, but if this was a real life scenario, you know some kind of sleazy tabloid is probably going to make headlines like that. And there probably no doubt will be questions at the end of this asking whether or not the decision to let villains live and just imprison them is the right strategy. Some probably will start asking the question as to whether or not they should just go full on Judge Dredd and execute them there and then. Again, it might not be something discussed in the programme directly, but it is something we briefly touch upon in this week's episode. I think that as well there will be a lot of people asking how all this happened. Are all the deaths, destruction, the pain and the suffering, the maiming and the murdering really just the result of the vendetta between one villain and one hero? Could this all have been avoided had All Might himself just done things differently? I mean, just look at it from the point of view of people in this world. They've seen inside sections of towns and cities level, people brutally killed and maimed for what? Not for dogma or ideology, but just because one villain wants to get revenge against one hero. People are going to wonder, could this all have been avoided by just offing him? Or just keeping him a tighter leash? Or could All Might have been the one who should have done things differently? I feel that by the end of this, people are going to end up seeing All Might very differently. I don't know if this will be the case going forward, but again, I feel a lot of questions are going to be end up asking. And whilst I don't feel that this is going to be the case, I do think this could have been, or could well be, the horrible death that Sir Nightai was warning about. All Might, as a person, doesn't die, but what he represents does. And all because he wanted to become more than just a hero. He wanted to be the symbol of peace. He wanted to be this inspirational figure. He wanted to be the role model and the mentor. And in the end, this inadvertently selfish action has caused a level of pain and discord that he could never have seen coming. Again, I don't think how this horrible death will be interpreted in future seasons. I don't know. It's one of the few things that hasn't been spoilt for me. But again, I feel that we're entering into a period where a lot of questions are going to end up being asked of our heroes, particularly with All Might and Midori, and by extension the Greater Hero Society, which I feel that even if we don't see them, the ripple effects of them are going to end up changing this world in ways that I don't think even the show itself will be able to fully express. If there is a follow-on sequel series, we will probably end up seeing just how far all this ends up reaching. Even if our villain doesn't change the world or destroy it, he's going to leave it with a rather wounding blow, the likes of which it might never fully recover from. But anyway, thank you all for your comments. If you have any more comments about this week's episode, leave them in the comment section down below, and they will be read in next week's show. I will do my best to them. Again, reading stuff particularly live is a difficult thing for me, but thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!